Cool.
Not awesome. So we are good to go. So hey John, thanks for joining us. We're with John Hatchell, who's the CEO and co-founder of TYDEi Health. And I remember I was scrolling through LinkedIn and someone liked something you had posted and whatnot, and I saw that you were in the healthcare field and you were experimenting with this new company with blockchain meets medical devices and kind of operating in that infrastructure, addressing some of the many issues that we have in that sector, one of which is cost and inefficiencies. And so that's how I came to reach out to you. And I was super excited that you reached back out to me and were willing to have this conversation. So I guess my first question for you is, I know you have a background in the medical device industry and whatnot. What led you from getting from there to the blockchain world and kind of taking that leap?
Yeah. So first, thanks for having me, always. I'm really excited to be here, and always happy to have these conversations. Yeah, really. I mean, I was in the medical device industry for just shy of 14 years. Had a great experience, worked for some really great organizations, and really enjoyed my time in that business and all the opportunities it afforded me. Really, my journey kind of started after that career ended. So, kind of rewind back to pre-pandemic, and I had just taken a new role with a company and was doing some research relative to that company around emerging businesses within healthcare. And so you look at all the kind of uh, things that are out there, and obviously AI, machine learning, obviously people are really excited about that. You look at kind of all the companies that are building and growing and evolving within digital health, and kind of looking at where folks are looking at tech-enabled solutions to provide better care delivery. And then obviously kind of stumbled upon blockchain. I was a crypto investor back in 16, 17, right? Like I think most people kind of got interested, or started to realize, hey, maybe this digital cash, with through Bitcoin, or and some of the other tokens that were out at the time that were pretty popular. Maybe yeah, maybe there's something to this, but I wasn't really understanding it, right? It's like I could understand the basics around at the time around coins and tokens and kind of how they worked, and even some of the maybe lesser known elements of what was popular. But when I started to really dive in, what I wanted to understand was where the utility aspects of blockchain, and where could they be applied in healthcare, and why was there so much hype around this technology, and where was the applicability really. And so what ended up as just kind of being a fact-finding mission really became a rabbit hole that I never really emerged from. So curiosity ultimately killed the cat, and just kind of became an obsession for me. And so there's so much out there in today's world from an education standpoint that allows you to really rapidly accelerate your understanding. And so between just obviously the resources that are made available on the web, and then the opportunity to get involved in communities, that was really the driver for me personally in really getting the understanding and really believing in the power that this tech could potentially provide to healthcare.
Awesome. Yeah, I feel like all of us have that one kind of in where you're like, oh, this is something I'm maybe going to read an article about, and then the next thing you know, you're like fully submerged, and it's your life. That's awesome. So talking about healthcare is like talking about the economy, right? That's like saying like I have a company that interacts with the economy, and it's just such a huge world, and there's so many like segmented areas and whatnot. So TYDEi Health, where does that kind of operate in this massive universe of healthcare?
Yeah, so it's I think we found our place, and I think we're pretty tactile in the sense that we wanted to take this tech and apply it in a way that was not only going to be useful in theory, but was going to be useful in execution, right? And so one thing we truly believe is a couple things, right? Like we think blockchain technology is really good at tracking things, right? Like that's one. Right? And then two, we also believe that, even though decentralization is one of the key tenets of blockchain, we knew that that's still a really heavy lift for a lot of organizations right now, right? Is to be able to provide something fully decentralized, because there's a lot of challenges that come with that. From that facility then has to take on, or a system has to take on, such as node operation, key management, and plenty of other aspects that not everyone's really equipped to do, right? And so we wanted to be able to bring the best elements of the space, but be able to apply them in enterprise without causing too much disruption. And we feel very confident about our strategy and how we were able to bottle that.
Nice. So let's kind of bring it to a level that a simple ER doc like me could understand. Say I have a hospital, I've got one bed, I've got one OR, and I've got one orthopedic surgeon. Now, obviously, a system like this probably wouldn't need the technology that you're offering, but how would your technology kind of interface with that one OR hospital?
Sure. So yeah, I mean, when you're talking about surgical care delivery, the real challenge for these folks is that they often require products that are supplied by third parties. And so the current systems and processes that are in place to get that product there and ready, and and have it staged essentially for a surgery, is quite fragmented, and there's a lot of friction involved. And so there's just not a lot of visibility. It's inherently very difficult, not only in healthcare, but in a lot of business, for legacy IT systems to communicate outside of an organization, right? And so so there's a few key tenets that we focus on as it pertains to surgical care, right? So first and foremost, inventory, right? Your supply chain, having an accurate data record of what product is there, and available and ready for patient care. It sounds like that wouldn't be that big of a lift, but in current form, most folks don't have that. Almost all don't have that, because there's a lot of varying categories of product ownership that exist in surgical care, that aren't always accounted for. So even it's easy when you're talking about products that are like consumable medical supply, right? Like everybody's kind of has that log in the supply chain. But when you're talking about the actual implantable medical devices, a lot of them tend to be on consignment, right? So they're in these consignment models, and the problem is not everybody has an accurate data record of that. And so so that was the first and foremost thing that we tried to do and tackle was provide an accurate inventory record that had two-sided visibility, right? So we're creating that multi-party connectivity there, and providing an accurate data record of all products that are there, to ensure preparedness, to ensure that folks can manage the life cycle appropriately, that they can be able to track and trace these products both inbound and outbound. So that was the first key element. The second, interoperatively, products, they're used, right? And so you've got to be able to capture that data, right? One, for some type of charge record or some form of transactional record. And you got to make sure that the product that you're opening and utilizing on a patient, right, is indeed the right product, that it's safe to use, and that that the pricing matches up with what you have on contract. And so that's kind of the interoperative piece, right? So our system allows folks in the OR setting to be able to capture that data, to standardize that data in record with what the FDA has in their record, and then being able to match the pricing. But even furthermore than that, we've been able to create some innovative solutions that allow some digital validation around products to ensure that they're actually safe and right for that procedure. And so that's a key tenet of ours as well, is because we want to make sure that we're providing really efficient but safe care in the OR setting as well. And then kind of taking that the next step, right, is the transactional piece, right? Which, after that procedure is done, there's a whole billing process that then needs to take place for the products that's been used or the services that have been rendered. And largely right now, that is a pretty heavily paper-based process in healthcare, right? Like most things. And so in a lot of facilities over the years that my prior life allowed me to experience, a lot of faxing, a lot of camera phone snapshots, so you have, there's just, it's, paper upon paper upon paper, right? And it's very difficult to track these records. And so creating, essentially a standard ledger, right, for, that both folks, both parties can see and have visibility to is incredibly important. And then being able to utilize some elements of blockchain, such as smart contracts, to automate these processes, so that, the purchasing process can happen, can be automated, and that it can ensure that the product that was used is then restocked back into the facility to ensure that it's prepared for the next procedure that may be coming up tomorrow or 2 days later, right? And so again, this seems like it shouldn't be that difficult, and is probably like the blocking and tackling of of surgery. But the way it stands today, when you're talking about not like one of these situations where it's a 1 OR environment, when you're talking about a 12 OR environment with multiple service lines and multiple vendors that are now in the mix of supplying all this, a lot of this accountability kind of gets passed around, and there's not really been, until our solution, something that's been available that allows these parties to have visibility, and the opportunity to interact and do business together in a way that provides the transparency necessary to facilitate this. So we're really excited about what we've built, and our ability to make this whole process not only incredibly efficient, but incredibly transparent, and again, the opportunity to automate a lot of these processes to lean the operations on it.
Yeah, that's and you alluded to it. If I'm a layperson on the street, I would assume that, every hospital system has like a really streamlined system for something like this, and it's probably been around for 20 years and everything's great. But then it also probably makes sense that we don't, because of so much of the inefficiencies we see in healthcare, and the fact that something like this that should have been streamlined isn't, is room for blockchain and this new technology to really create impact. When you go to hospital systems or healthcare facilities, when you have that initial conversation about this service that you're offering, what is the initial reaction? In my experience, a lot of healthcare is very kind of stuck in its old ways and not really receptive to kind of big bold change. What are those initial conversations like, and what kind of makes maybe a switch flip for those healthcare executives saying, oh, we could definitely go down this route?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, we're still we're an early stage company, right? So our conversation, I would call uh I would call this commercial light at this point. We've been very strategic to not blanket the entire country in some marketing campaign, because we've tried to responsibly uh take this endeavor on, right? And we're learning with the customers that we have right now, as we start to grow, purposefully, right? Because we don't want to create more chaos in an area that's already got enough to deal with at its own, right? And so we want to make sure that we're doing this with really the customer and the facility, their motives and their expectations in mind in everything that we do early on, right? And so I think in every conversation we've had, particularly in the ASC setting, I think you see a little bit of a mix, right? So in the hospital setting, the challenge is when we talk to the executives in hospitals and health systems to date, they don't necessarily understand the nuance and the challenges that are actually impacting their surgical care environments as well. In the ASC space, certainly feel it, right? In the ASC space, because that's their business, they know these challenges and these problems incredibly well. And I would say they've been much more receptive because the pain points are just that much more real. Their executive teams understand it, right? Like this is all that they do, and so that these things certainly hit a hot button with them. But I think overall, no question, there's an unmet need here. And so it's really system dependent on where it kind of fits within their system. But the need, nonetheless is there. And so I think we get that acknowledgement, we get that validation from everyone. It just then becomes a business problem where we have to figure out how to tactfully integrate in a way that is as this cause as little disruption as possible. But we've been very successful in that so far.
Awesome, awesome. Where would you say, when you kind of were taking the dive on this, in terms of the technology, how the technology has been around for a couple of years now, how easy or hard was it to adapt that technology to what you were doing in terms of finding developers that understand the applicability and kind of
Yeah.
other nuances, and then especially with healthcare, HIPAA, and health privacy information, whatnot, and just if you could give me a sense of kind of where that landscape is at right now.
Yeah, no, it's definitely difficult to go find the tech talent necessary to understand this, or who build in certain languages, right? And so luckily our CTO comes with a ton of experience in the space, and has been in the space for well over a decade now, which is great when you've got somebody like that on the roster to help you really tackle these challenges. But at the end of the day, I mean, these type of challenges, when you just think about the products as stuff, right, and you take kind of the patient element out of it, it's not that big of a burden, I think, in development, right? It's the end of the day, all we're doing is we're just tracking things, right, and we're transacting things, and plenty of companies have been very good at that, and there's plenty of examples, I think, of utilizing blockchain to do that incredibly well, and to handle supply chain really well, and handle financial transactions very well. And so for us, it was just kind of breaking it down bit by bit, and being able to take some of those core principles and just apply them in certain areas, and then and kind of evolve that step by step. And obviously, I think the biggest challenge in development with this is that is more related to the healthcare piece, which is just how many departments certain processes touch, and how many folks end up being involved, right, in just the tracking of one item moving through a department, and how many other parties are involved in that in the current stage, right, and trying to get folks off like mindset change to think, okay, well, can you use tech to streamline that? Can you have tech improve that workflow? Can you have tech automate some of maybe the manual initiation that's currently been used, right? And so that's where you've got to kind of come in from a consulting standpoint with them early on, and let them know, hey, this is an opportunity to improve the way things have been done, and kind of show them the way that of how the applicability of this can solve that, and be a great element of change.
Nice. Yeah, it's good to see that it can be done, and it is being done by organizations like y'all, and hopefully it'll become more and more accessible, and something that is more normalized. Obviously, you are passionate about the company that you founded and are working with, but question about what other doesn't have to be a particular company. What other set of ideas or things do you see that are happening in healthcare kind of meets the blockchain Web3 world that you say is like, wow, they're doing something different. They're gonna they're going to change something.
Yeah, no, I think some of the things that have come out of the Synaptic Health Alliance are really intriguing. What's going on with Avenir. I still, they kind of lift the veil here and there, and you can kind of see what's coming with them, and that's a really exciting company in what they have brewing currently. So those are really great. But one of the things is kind of a core value of ours is that look, the promise of Web3 is incredibly exciting for healthcare. I really think it may be healthcare's best chance to redesign the way care looks while still seamlessly having care delivery happen for patients and in every walk. And the reason I say that is because I think you can start to rebuild outside of kind of the systems and have them start to interact while they adapt and evolve. And a couple of the areas that I'm really excited about are certain segments of the space that I think could be particularly interesting over the years. Certainly the centralized science is a real, or DeSci as a lot of people call it. I think that's got a lot of promise and is certainly starting to really ramp up and gain a lot of momentum. Really interested in DAOs, right? We've got some R&D in the works there where we're really excited about the applicability of utilizing DAOs in the future to really organize parties, people, organizations, right, with a common purpose or common goal, and I think can be really influential here in the future with healthcare. Self-sovereign identity, verifiable credentials. I think the sky's the limit, right, in terms of utilizing those elements to really solve some big challenges in healthcare as well. And so I think I'm a big believer. I don't think it's going to be one organization, right? I think somebody has said this before. I'd have to figure out who can own the quote, but blockchain, right, as a space, Web3 as a space is really a team sport, and so it really is going to take a number of organizations who come together and create almost an ecosystem play, and I think that can be driven early on at an organizational level, but certainly over time, can start to grow and scale to really include multiple organizations, multiple systems, payers, you name it, right? And so you can start to connect the dots and realize how we can effectively work in a matrix if we harness the power of these technologies appropriately. And really, start to drive change by utilizing them. And so, but the biggest barrier for that right now is just apathy. If you want to break it down, it's just you've got to be able to evangelize people and get them to see that, hey, maybe taking a break from some of the logos that you're used to kind of working with or used to seeing in the space. And start to kind of branch out and work with founders like us and founders from other companies who are doing some really innovative things, and look outside of kind of the kind of the standard operating models to find ways to get creative to really solve this challenge for once and for good.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. It just excites me, you talking about all those things. It is so awesome to see folks like yourself working on, companies and founding companies that are addressing some of these things. And I talked to some folks and they have 5 and 10-year visions, which is great. But I like that your company is addressing kind of one piece of the pie that is very easy to understand and that you're already applying, and that is going to be something that's applicable to hospitals and systems during the next few months and years rather than kind of a 10-year goal. So thanks so much for joining me, kind of sharing about your company and sharing other thoughts, and really appreciate it.
No problem. It was a true pleasure and appreciate the invite always.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, John. You have a good rest of
Yep,
your day, and
you too.
we'll stay in touch. Bye.